gorgeous. So, oftentimes, my son and I have these really delicious, juicy conversations about spirituality, inner work, human design. And a few months ago, we were saying, how fun would it be to record one of these conversations and just put something like a little bit different on YouTube? So, finally, yesterday, we sat down and we did it. And so what you're about to see is a little portion of that conversation. It ended up being longer than an hour. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually chop it up and post like little bits and pieces of it. So enjoy. And I don't know if I say this at the end or not, but all of the links that we mentioned, so Armaan's human design email will be listed in the description box, and I will also pin it to the first comment. And my course, Such the Bowing to the Divine, is happening next week. It starts on May 22nd, so that will also be linked in the description box. Okay, I love you and enjoy.
So yes, as she said, we are conducting our first interview. We've been wanting to do this for a long time. So we're going to get on to the first question. There was something that some of us have noticed in your YouTube channel. It's that you have somewhat rebranded it. So it's somewhat kind of away from the relationship content. Is there a reason why? What led you to this change?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. So I've known that. Well, let me start in the beginning. So I don't know if a lot of my newer subscribers are aware, but when I started this YouTube channel 12 years ago, I was doing what I would consider basic babe content. So I was like doing hauls and what's in my bag and like Louis Vuitton unboxings and then like makeup unboxing and things like that. And then slowly from that, I moved to like self-aware Barbie content. These are my 4 stages that I teach from. And self-aware Barbie was when I got diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis and autoimmune disease, and I like that was just literally what was going on in my life. I had to change my entire lifestyle overnight. I had to change my eating habits. I had to change like how I was sleeping, supplements. Like my whole life became engrossed in my family and like getting rid of this autoimmune disease. So because I already had this YouTube channel, I started sharing that journey on my YouTube channel. Well, as I started, as I got cured and I healed my autoimmune stuff, I started doing really, really deep inner work. I started going into, well, why did I manifest this disease in the first place? Like, what was this disease trying to teach me? And as I shifted into that, changes started happening in my relationships, in my consciousness, and then I started sharing that. So like Million Dollar Babe content, and that's where my whole, school was formed, the Universe Guru University, like I like to say, all of my inner work courses. We have over 60 courses now. For the last 2 years, I have known that I have to evolve into teaching the high-end divinity content. But for some reason, unlike the other ones, which were just like this natural progression, I have had a huge internal battle with switching over. So you have, noticed in the last 2 years, I'll start making announcements where I'm not doing relationship content anymore. I'm like moving into like metaphysical, and then I'll move back. And then I'll do it again and I'll start shifting into that direction and then I'll move back. So I've had to do a lot of my own inner work around this. There's been so much fear that's been coming up. I've had to release like past karmic things with, pulling my Akashic records and really working through this fear of not being able to fully go into what I'm teaching. So I know this is a long answer, but the truth is that is the stuff that I'm here to teach. Like my Akashic readings say that, my human design says that, my numerology says that. Like everything in my being, in my existence says I'm here to teach God level content, source content, the laws of the universe, the messages from the divine. And those things were just practices leading me here. But this has been the hardest transition. The message is strong and clear now for me that it's time. Like it's happening. And so energetically, I've prepared myself. I'm ready. And so that's the shift that I know you've been noticing, and I'm sure that my people on YouTube and all the other platforms have been noticing as well.
Wow, such a long journey, right?
Yeah.
Would you say that you taught everything that you know about relationships, and that because your timing is done, like everything that you put aside, all the viewers can go watch your relationship content and they will be able to thrive? Do you think that, you've taught everything?
Absolutely. It's not everything I know, but it's everything that they need and they are ready for.
Mhm.
Because there is a plane when we manifest relationship issues, and in that plane, everything that you need is already in my courses. So anyone coming to my channel right now can go, binge watch my free content, go get the relationship courses and get everything that they need in the plane that they are. Now, in the high-end divinity plane, there's more teachings and more stuff, but that will come naturally through my work, through the embodiment of the laws of the universe, versus like talking about relationships. Like a lot of that stuff will get resolved, or it's not about resolving because that's the level of the $1 million babe, but you will keep evolving your relationship as you evolve in the high-end divinity stage. But what they need in the $1 million babe and the self-aware Barbie stage, it's all there. There's like nothing more to say. In fact, I've given more than even was necessary because I should have stopped teaching that 2 years ago.
Mhm. So a while back, you would say, okay.
Yeah.
You just mentioned about the self-aware and the $1 million stage. How has it been when it comes to switching back and forth? Because there's some moments when you're in the self-aware stage, and then there's other moments when you're in the $1 million, or even in the, what was it, the high divinity stage.
High-end divinity. Yes.
So talk about switching in between both, and what does it mean if you self-diagnose yourself as that? Like, if you get the gist of what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I do. And so, okay, so there are um there are these stages that we all have. We all have these 4 stages, and there's like healthy embodiments of these 4 stages, and then there's shadow sides of them. So when we are unaware, we haven't had our spiritual awakening, we haven't been doing our inner work, these stages are running sort of behind the scene, but they're in the shadow side. So the basic babe or basic boy stage in the shadow side is, acting like a grown child, literally like functioning as if you're a child inside, and doing relationships from this place of like, mommy and daddy, I need you, versus like I'm showing up as a fully grown, sovereign, human being. And so that's the shadow side of it. The healthy embodiment of the basic boy and the basic babe is playfulness, childlikeness, being wondrous and curious in the world, being able to have fun and let loose. And so same thing with the self-aware Barbie. There is a shadow side of it where you're only functioning in your masculine if you're a woman, or kind of like passive and letting go of your masculinity if you're a man. And that's happening kind of in the shadow. Or once you're healed, and you're conscious, you can choose to go into those modes from a healthy perspective. So once you're in the high-end divinity mode, you're using all of these stages in a very healthy way. You have your childlike self, you have your boss babe moments where you need to put on your big girl pants and do the self-aware Barbie masculine energy girl boss thing. And so yes, I very much use all of these stages intentionally and consciously. And of course, we all have moments where we can be tired or jet lagged or hangry, and then we might activate them in an unconscious, unhealthy way. But once you know this inner work, you know how to kind of evolve yourself out of it and like regain yourself and your highest self.
Right. Okay. That's amazing. And I actually want to touch on human design for a second, because I actually remember you introducing me to human design a couple years back. And I actually had like a little mini reading done by you, and it actually has intrigued me ever since. So, how has human design impacted the way you raised me, or you raised your kids?
It's kind of a funny question it's coming from. So first of all, human design was such a coming home for me. I'm a projector. And again, when I said that my Akashic readings, human design, numerology, like all of my things point towards me being this, spiritual teacher on this planet and teaching the laws of the divine. that was like such a big kind of like, oh my God, like I had already had my Akashic reading by then. I had already had my numerology reading. My signs, actually, my astrology says the same thing. And so once I had this, it was kind of like God's last, like, are you getting it or not? Like, this is exactly what you're supposed to be doing. Like, do you have enough proof, you know? And so realizing that without even knowing anything about human design, just simply by, being on God's grid, I was able to find my way to where I was supposed to be doing. I think it relieved a lot of that natural parental fear that we have with our kids. Like every single parent can relate to this. In our human self, we have this fear of like screwing up our kids and like, oh my God, what if they end up drug addicts and like in jail? Like you think of all these worst case scenarios. And then when I found human design and I, read all of you guys' chart and read daddy's chart and my own chart and everything, I was like, wow, just like I found my path and I know exactly who I am and who I was destined to be, they have their path. Like these are not my children, these are souls and who happen to have manifested as my children, right? Like, so they have their own path. And now they have this tool where they can use human design to stay on their own grid, stay on God's grid. But even if they didn't have this tool, they could have found their path just like I did. So I think it helped me relieve worry. Like since I found human design, it has been so much easier kind of letting go of what my role is in the parenting and what God's role is. So that's been a main one for me. And I have and I know you're aware of this, I switched to teaching based on you guys' design. So like for example, you and Alina are generators, which you in the beginning we misread your chart. We thought you were a manifester, and then we through your own intuition, you were like, I just don't resonate with this. And then when we looked at your records, we had your birth time incorrect. So that just goes to tell you that your intuition is so strong, right? And so, like when I tell you guys that, hey, Ayan is a projector, he's not going to be on all the time. Like he needs time by himself. He needs to rest. He needs time to kind of like empty out his centers more than you guys. And so that is just an example of parenting based on design. And so I'm going to ask you as well. I know when you do human design readings, which by the way, if you guys are not familiar, my son is a intensely potent intuitive reader. So I did train him how to do readings, but like what he's added to it and how he's taken over is beyond what I could have even imagined. It's just, it gives me chills. Like it gives me goosebumps how you're like the intuitive part, that there's no way that I could have taught that, that either you have that or you don't. So that's definitely something you were destined to do as part of your God's grid. So when you do readings for parents, they bring their children a lot of times, right? And then they want to read their children's chart. So how has that impacted, lives for your clients, you would say, and your students?
It makes me very happy whenever a parent refers, to the child, refers me to their child, right? Just because I know for a fact that, the parent really wants to raise their children to be, much more healthier in a way. And especially when they watch you, I think that's when they get the message like, oh, she's raising her kids the right way. They turn out to be, very healthy, very, productive. So I want to do the same with my kids. So whenever I have a parent that refers me to their child, it makes me feel very, what's the word for it? It makes me feel very blessed. So
Mm.
that's what I feel. And I've seen parents interact with their child so much more differently now after
Wow.
knowing their human design. Like I'll give you an
Wow.
example. If one of the I remember one of the children was a projector. And with projectors, they tend to have like very inconsistent energy. So whenever they come home from school or from work, but especially a child from school, he or she is going to be probably very burnt out. So the last thing they want is for someone to, to be too caught up in like, oh, why don't you do this, do this, do this, do that. So when the parent understood this, she was like, oh, okay. So I think I need to give him space. So just small things like that is what is helping, to raise, productive members of society.
This is huge. This is God's work, honestly.
It
I mean,
is.
as you were saying this, I was thinking back to your childhood. Like when you would come home from school, you would go do taekwondo for 2 hours, and then you went through, doing basketball. And remember when we put Ayan in taekwondo, he was like done in like a month. He was like, I
He's a
can't do.
projector. That's why, because he's a projector, I'm a generator. So it makes sense. Not that he's not capable of doing it or that I'm more capable in any way. It's just because we have different approaches to our energy, meaning that I can do it after school. For him, he might have to do it at a different time of the day. Or if he even uses intuition to believe, okay, taekwondo isn't even my thing in the first place. What if basketball is? What if another kind of sport is, right? So we all have different needs. That's why I always say in human design that you can have anything that you want. You just have a different approach of getting there because of how we channel our energy. It doesn't mean that you're constrained in any way. That's what I have to tell everyone because they often come up with a lot of limiting beliefs over the dumbest stuff.
I think one of the reasons is because there's so much conflicting content out there, like for free. And the truth is, anyone could go out there and make a YouTube channel or Instagram or whatever on, teaching human design, but you can only teach to your highest frequency. And so if you still have fear in you, if you still have a lot of limiting beliefs, and of course we're all human, we all have some level of that. But if the person teaching this stuff on their YouTube channel and forums or whatever on their socials, it has a lot of that fear-based frequency still, they still haven't done their deconditioning, their inner work, like all of that stuff, then that's what they're giving you. And so when people find their chart and they go and start Googling around, they come, like when I found human design and learned I was a projector, I was like, oh my God, this is God's gift. Like I am like so lucky and so blessed. And then I went and started searching and I'm seeing people just crying. I'm not allowed to have kids, and now I can't get married. And I'm like, wait, I have kids already, and I'm married, and I have this, and this. And so then I started learning that, it's just like everything else. You can only teach money to the highest frequency that you know money to be. You can only teach health to the highest frequency that you know health to be. And so the thing with you is that you were luckily, I started doing my inner work while you were still fairly young. And so I was able to raise you to the best of my ability, obviously, without a lot of these limiting beliefs. And you saw me working through it. Like, we're a very human family. Obviously, you saw us having our own limiting beliefs, working through it. So you saw the process. And because of that, your intuitive body, your energy body, your emotional body is none of that is tainted with these limiting beliefs. So when you encounter, people and they're like, you're like, yes, you can. This is your path. You might not be able to do it like that person over there, but this is how you can do it. So that's why it is very important for people to go to someone that is going to give them a high frequency reading. And remember, it has nothing to do with age. Like Armaan's 18, but he's been raised with inner work as like the primary force in our household. So he knows how to work through these things. Even when you have your own limiting beliefs, like, you have them and then by evening time we've like worked through them and we don't have them anymore, right?
Done. Done. Yes. So the thing is, I remember some clients and, we always have our fair share of people who wish to be another type. Like we said, the grass is always greener on the other side, isn't it?
Yes.
I was actually disappointed when I found out I wasn't a manifester the first time. But when I realized that, I'm like, if I was another type, my life would have ended up differently, wouldn't it? So I'm happy with my type. But even if any viewers that are watching, they happen to be a reflector, let's say, the rarest one there is, be happy with that type because you are the most unique, the uniquest type, if that's a word. Like you are super rare, which makes you having like these extraordinary abilities. And same thing with the projector. It's fairly rare. Same thing with the manifestor. And then if you are a generator, it means that you have the energy to really follow through with anything that you want to do. So I don't see anything bad here. I mean, yes, of course, there's challenges, but isn't there a challenge for anything? There's challenges with you being a projector, and there's challenges with me being a generator, but that's how it works. And remember, we have 100% free will. So we can actively go and do our inner work, decondition from everything that we've been, taught in our childhood that may have been out of alignment with our chart. So essentially, I look at this as a magical thing, nothing to worry about. Why would anyone be born with like a horrible design? That's like, to me, that doesn't make sense. Right, exactly. It's like, why is it fair to some and then unfair to others? So I'm grateful that you introduced me to human design. I think I was around 15 or 16 years old, but even then at that time, I was just so intrigued. It's better to teach kids when they're younger, but even at that time, you've already raised me to be so intrigued about information in general and doing inner work that when you taught me this, I was so captivated. And, having the idea to do these readings for, so many clients, like for me, it's a wonderful experience. Like I never wake up one day and dread doing this job. Why? Because I get to learn about different people all around the world as well. It's not just from the United States. So I get to learn from so many different cultures, so many different backgrounds, and I get to, it seems like for me, it's like traveling the world as well. It's like traveling virtually. I love that. So
That sounds fun. Yeah, that's amazing. That's when you know that you're on God's grid, right? Like you're following the path that was designed for you because it feels good. And that's like such a good testament of that. And when you're off grid, it doesn't feel good. Your life feels mismatched off. And so that's a big sign to know if you're on the right path. And doesn't mean that's the only path or the forever path, but you know you're on the right path.